Hello, everyone. My name is Catherine Fareda. I am the host and owner of Gem and Me. I want to take the time today to introduce myself. Who am I? I'm a young, proud, first-generation Latina born and raised in Washington Heights. I have excelled in my life with adversity, hope, belief, motivation, and most importantly, the power in me. And I believe everybody has their own power inside themselves. And I want to share this platform with you to be able to explore and dig very deep inside of you to find the blessings, the gifts that you were given to become the best version of yourself. So thank you so much for joining today to the Gem and Me podcast. I hope to give you blessings, aha moments, many gifts really that you have within yourself to be able to unfold and find those within you. Thank you for listening today and welcome to Gem to Me. The power is within you. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for listening today. So today we have an amazing friend, colleague, powerhouse Latina here. Her name is Valery Lucille, and she is a mindset coach. She teaches us how to shift our mindsets around financials, around healing, and she's really a powerhouse in motivating and changing and giving us tips on how to strategize our life and improve it. So Valerie, thank you so much for being here today. It's an honor truly to have you because I first was following you on Instagram and I saw like the work you were doing and I was like, oh, like I want to connect with her. Like she's cool. I like her vibe. I like what she's doing. And I feel like it's so important the work that you do because we have so much work to do and you're doing the work and you're sharing that with everybody. So thank you so much for being here today. Can you give us a brief, overview of like who's Valerie and what you're currently doing?
Thank you so much for having me. And that was beautiful. Thank you for connecting as well. I love that you took the initiative and approached me. I'm always very open to people doing that. I love talking to people that are just look like me, right? We're both Latinas and also just connecting with people that just want to talk and know more. So my name is Valery Lucille, and I am a mindset and healing coach. And so I don't just talk about finances, but I talk about things that like really as Latinas, we go through a lot of like trauma through our going, either whether we're first gen or not. And we go through a lot of like mindset things that we don't realize actually affect us as we grow up and really affects the actions that we go through as we are living our lives as adults. And so I work with women and I help them trust themselves again, whether that's making decisions on finances, whether that's making decisions on life in general, in order for them to rediscover like their true inner voices versus their parents' voices or things that their ancestors and, abuelos y abuelas came up with to find and really find the path that they want to go through so that they can live confidently in their lives. So that's really what I do on my day-to-day basis is really coach women in just feeling confident in making the decisions that are right for them.
Wow, that's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that. It's beautiful how you said, changing that mindset that our parents and grandparents share with us because it's like you have to re-raise yourself once you're an adult, right? And like, okay, like this is not serving me. This is a trauma. Like this was like a survival mechanism, if you will. Okay, don't do that, stay here, don't go too far, don't do this. And it's like, okay, like you're in this box and you're like, okay, like this is not the way to live. Like I have to change this narrative. And so it's so hard. It's so hard to do it because I'm doing it, every day. And it's like, okay, like we have to do so much work. And it's amazing that you're doing it. So thank you for sharing that. Um, how was your upbringing and like can you share with us like any lessons that you could reflect on? I know you mentioned all those, if you will, generational traumas that we have, but there is some blessings in them sometimes, right? Of those like lessons and values that you still hold on to you and that you learned and you use as an adult now.
Yeah, I mean, I loved my upbringing. I had two very loving parents and my grandparents. I was raised by my mom and my grandmother for a little bit because my dad was living in DR and didn't really have his paperwork and things like that for a little while. And then he came here, and I was born and raised in New York, and then we moved to Jersey. And I honestly loved, I grew up loving exactly, we spent a lot of time outside, and we didn't have, everything, but I never felt like I was missing things. But there's definitely things that I picked up growing up that I didn't realize until I started college, where I was just like, I got like culture shock, and I was just like, wait, what's going on? So I went to a predominantly white school. And so I didn't realize, honestly, how the world was a lot different um, than my little community, right? And so, especially financially, right? So I had to take a lot of loans to go to school, and I had to really provide for myself and work three jobs, and really struggled with my identity as a Latina, and really as an American as well, and providing for myself and my family and all that stuff in college, because there were so many. The friends that I had in college were, predominantly white, and they would get help from their parents, and their parents were able to help and aid and things like that, or didn't have to take out loans, or were able to pay semesters off and with just checks coming in and provide for themselves, and didn't have to worry about working and all these things. And so for me, it was really hard coming to terms with the fact that the life I lived wasn't what I really thought, right? Like, you start learning like the things that you didn't realize as a child were happening, right? Like, my parents couldn't afford everything. And the mindset that you pick up, like for me, was really like, one of the big things was my dad was a big spender, and my mom was the big saver. And I picked up a lot of things from my dad, like getting credit cards and opening them, and things that you realize that they didn't teach you because they didn't know better, right? And so in college, I ended up working three jobs and opening up credit cards to support myself, and not realizing, taking out extra loans as well, and the interest accruing and all these other things that nobody taught me about, right? And so I had to start learning. For me, debt was just a number. I didn't know that after college I would have to pay these back, and that the impact of how much I would have to pay monthly, and how it would impact my lifestyle, and how I would live my life, and what car I could afford, or how much rent I could afford, and all these other things based off student loans. And so growing up, I was never privy to that, because my parents never talked about money. My parents never talked about whether we had enough or not. I always just knew that my parents were always hustling, right? My mom worked really hard for everything that she got, and my dad worked multiple jobs because he barely knew any English. And so he was always working. And so for me, I went into, or started my like adult life with that mentality of like, I constantly have to work because I never had enough. And it impacted me, mentally, a lot. And I had to start, like you said, I had to start rewiring my brain in order for me to have my own opinions of like, how do I want to live my life, have my own path of like, how do I want to, do I want to like live in this, like constantly living in this debt and constantly hustling, constantly having all these jobs just to make ends meet? Or do I actually want to live a life of abundance where I am comfortable where I am? I don't have to constantly struggle with like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to have enough money at the end of the month, or I'm not really sure if I can pay for this, or I'm not really sure if I can buy lunch today. Like, I didn't want to live like that, so it took some time, but I did end up start paying off my debt. To this day, I have about 40K paid off. I started with 80K. When I first started, I had a lot of accrued interest that I had no idea about, which is basically just money that's constantly being added to your loans every single day, that you don't pay them. Because I went a good 2, 3 years after college not paying a single dime, because I had no idea where to start or where to go from there. And that's kind of like how I started and then my story.
Wow, that's, I mean, it's impactful because we were taught, okay, go to school, like get an education, and then like you're sacrificing so much and getting into debt in the midst of it, right? To get that education and be educated and so so-called successful or made it, if you will, right? And so then it's like, okay, yeah, I went to school, but now I'm in debt. And that's a reality that many of us, first chance, if you will, um, live by, is that, okay, yeah, we went to school, but then we have this burden afterwards. We kind of have to live and with it for the rest of our lives, and many of who spend years and decades paying back their student loans, which is unfortunate. But thank you so much for sharing that. That was very impactful, and I'm sure many people could relate to that because this is a struggle. The struggle is real, right? um but it's the powerful story from there is that you were able to shift, right? And like, even though you had this burden, you changed your mindset and rewired, and like now you're like making it work, you're successful, you have your education, you have your business, you're paying off your loans. Like, the point is to get out of that, right? Of that narrative that, oh, like now I'm gonna be with this forever, basically. So I know that all this amazingness, it's is your purpose, your business, what you carry every day. But I know that part of that really is fueled, right, when you pour into yourself. And I feel like our morning routines, or how we start our days, and how we kind of be intentional. And so I wanted you to share, like, what is your morning routine?
That is such a great question. It changes, but really right now, and I think when I first started making that shift of reparenting myself and relearning the things that I wanted to do for myself and the way I wanted to live my life, um, the first thing I did was get myself organized, right? I didn't want to wake up in the morning and then not know what I was doing. So, what I would do, my morning routine would actually start at night. So, the day before, I would actually set up my planner and I would give myself like a top three list of like these three things are what I need to get done for tomorrow. And when it came to like work and things like that, I'd prepare my clothes ahead of time so I wouldn't wake up rushing. Because if you wake up in the morning rushing and you're just constantly on the go, your brain and your body feel that, and it just adds anxiety to you, and your day just goes to crap. Like it just ends up getting you kind of just crazy. So I would always start the night before, getting my clothes ready, making sure that I had my top three of like, these are the things that I want to focus on. And then in the morning, I'm not a big coffee person. I'm a big like smoothie or like a cold drink or just kind of water. So just getting myself ready for the day and making sure that I'm hydrated in the morning, or having a smoothie to kind of pick my body up and making me feel good. Sometimes it depends on, right now I'm 7 months pregnant, so I'm not exercising, but on some days I would
Congratulations.
like, thank you. On some days I would like wake up and like either ride my bike or do some yoga, or just stretch and really just get my body in tune with like waking up, right? And not rushing it. And then I would just kind of just sit down with my reflections about like, what happened the day before, or what is it that I want to achieve moving forward this week. So it really depends on the day, but really I would lay everything out. I'm a very big like paper and pen planner girl. And I just sit down and I'm just like, all right, let me look at today and let me look at the week and let me see what are my priorities for this week and today and what I need to get done. And I base the rest of my day based off that. I try to not overwhelm myself, because sometimes people give your like, I know people that do like 6 things on a to-do list, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want to make sure what 3 things are the most important and the most time privy, and then go from there. And if I have time throughout the day and I can add to it after I do those top 3, then I go ahead and do that. But I don't want to stress myself out. So that's really my routine in the morning. Is it starts the night before, getting myself ready for the day, whether that's putting clothes out, or writing my top 3 and getting that ready. And so in the morning, I have my schedule. I already know what I'm planning on doing the next day, getting some movement in, making sure I'm hydrated and fueled by something, and then attacking my day.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I am also an agenda person. I write down all my things. Usually the night before also I try to like empty out my brain, if you will, before I go to bed because I'm that type of person that's laying down thinking about what they want to do the next day.
Oh my God, all the time.
So so I'm like, okay, I have to like let it all out. I have to write everything that I need to do and then okay, that's it. Everything is out. It's on paper. I'm not gonna forget. Okay, perfect. Now I could sleep. So that is something that I do usually, and be purposeful about your day. I feel like also as an organizer or planner, sometimes we buy more than we can chew, which is I'm guilty. You set this expectation like I want to do this A through Z. You're like shit, like the day is not going as I planned, and I can't do B, C, and D. Like what's gonna happen? But it's like giving yourself grace. I feel like every day is a new opportunity to like do something and move forward and not
Oh,
be so
definitely.
hard on ourselves. And it's a journey, it's not a destination. Like
Mhm.
sometimes we feel like, oh yeah, like if I do this today, like that's it, everything's gonna be fine. Like no, you have to wake up every day and do it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like a journey that you kind of learn from and embrace. So thank you for sharing that. I also like try to like start my day with via meditation, something that grounds me. So meditation would be it, or like a prayer, or um, Christian music. I'm not very religious, but I feel like recently I've been like, looking more like spiritually and religiously and trying to like feel myself in that space. So that has helped me too. So I do, my morning routines are not like every day the same. Um,
Oh, mine aren't
yeah,
either.
because it's like
Definitely not.
once I'm home now, so like once you're home it's like okay, like you're gonna be home most of the day, so like it's not like you have to run out and be up and do all this craziness before. Of course you have to be scheduled and stuff, so that's, I mean,
I
that's really
do
helpful. Go ahead.
I do tell like my clients like you don't need to stick to something, and if routine is not for you and you have to do it every single day and you get bored, you can switch it up, right? Like a routine is just making sure that your headspace is in the right mindset when you start your day, right? So like sometimes I journal, sometimes I pray, just like you said, sometimes I listen to a podcast, sometimes I read. So like it doesn't have to be the same thing that you're doing every day. It's just making sure that you're starting with the right energy in the morning versus you feeling rushed or feeling like you're already having anxiety for what's coming, but you're prepared for what's coming. Like instead of it being something that just happens, like something just popped on your lap, or oh, I forgot this meeting, or I have this appointment, you are prepared and you're using your time wisely.
Yeah, and I think it's so important because you set yourself for success instead of failure. And living, I like spontaneous things, but I also like to know like what's ahead. Like I'm that type of friend that's like, okay, no, like, yeah, when are we gonna meet up? Oh yeah, I'll let you know. No, like we have to put on the calendar, we have to do this, we have to put it. I like to be organized, so that's something also. Apart from, I know you told us a little bit of your upbringings and how that formed you and it impacted the person you are today. What is something that you wish you can tell your younger self?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I think about this so much. um and I would tell her so many things, but I think the one thing I would tell her is that it's if you keep going and you look back, it's not that hard. When I was younger, I had so many, especially in high school, I went through a very like depressive state where I thought the world was ending and everybody was against me, and that the life that I was living was the life that I'd be stuck in forever because I was unhappy. Um, and I just felt like I was constantly the victim and everything was going wrong. Um, so I would tell my younger self, because the person that I am now and the life that I'm living now is such a blessing and is so different from when I was in high school. And I would have never imagined all the things that I have and all the things I've accomplished, and the confidence that I have now. It's wow. It like little me would be like, what? There's no way.
That's
Um,
awesome.
so I would really just tell her, like, believe in yourself, just a little more every single day. I know that it's hard. I know that you are probably having questions and not sure what's happening. Just have a little faith, um, and just keep going. Whatever that is, just keep going.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. I feel like growing up is it's hard to see that things are gonna get better, especially when I can relate with like having dark phases in your life, where you're like, and you're bitter, and that's part of the education and the healing that we have to do, right? Because you're in this dark space where like you think everything's wrong around you, and the people, the place, your job, whatever you name it. But like being grateful for what you have and changing those feelings and those emotions, I think are crucial to our evolution and transformation as adults. So I'm so happy that we're having this conversation because there we have to do more work. We have to do more work. We have, especially in our culture. I mean, um, you mentioned that you're Dominican, and I feel like as I'm Dominican too, my parents. Oh, I was born and raised in Washington Heights, and my parents are from DR, and so I see our culture. There is great people like yourself, that are doing the work and putting our flag in in a good space, right up. But there is also that space and kind of, I would say, trauma and beliefs and values that we have to readjust. Like there's so much that we have to change. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. So what would you say is the initial step to, changing that money mindset and shifting that narrative?
I would say the initial step is, like I previously mentioned, by my younger self, is stepping outside of victimhood, um, and telling yourself, like, okay, if this is the life you don't want to live, then all right, we need to do something about it. And one of the things that working with my clients, especially with money, is really just taking a look at your numbers. Like you're never going to get out of the hole that you are in right now if you don't know how deep the hole is. You will never know, like, or am I 3 feet in? Am I 6 feet in? Like, imagine if you just assume that you are 3 feet in, but you're really 6 feet in, and you're like, make this ladder for 3 feet. Like you get 3 feet up, and then you're like, there's still 3 more feet to go up. Does that make sense? And so the
Yeah.
biggest thing that you could do, the biggest first step, is just knowing your numbers. So knowing how much debt you actually have, knowing how much saving you actually have, how much you spend every single month, and what do you spend your money on, right? What is your most expensive thing that you spend your money on? Is it food? Is it your car? Is it your electricity? Is it your apartment or your house? Like knowing your numbers will set you free. And that's the first step that you need to know.
Thank you. I feel like one of the hardest step of getting there um is the mindset, right? Or the limiting beliefs towards money that we grow, and it's like, oh, like um you know but I feel like it does give me comfort, like when I have to improve my financials. I could confess that. um but something that makes me feel more better towards money is when, like you said, like putting the numbers, like this is the number, this is the goal, what am I spending the money on? And then like once you could control your money and your money doesn't control you, then that's like, okay, like I got this, like I could do this.
Oh my
it,
God,
it,
yes.
it makes it so much better. And that's with everything, but I feel like, money is always that big combo that we don't want to talk about, but unfortunately it's something that we have to address, because it's like if you don't address it, then it's gonna either get worse or stay the same, which probably won't stay the same. It'll get worse.
Yeah. Well, that's why I say that this is the first step, even if it's mindset wise, is knowing your numbers, because your brain plays tricks on you. If you don't actually know what the information is, your brain will make it seem worse than already is, right? And so you become anxious or you have more anxiety about it, and you start like thinking that you have to do this, and you just kind of get to that point where you like hit rock bottom and you're not sure which direction to go. And really, it could be the easiest thing to ease that anxiety is really by just knowing your numbers and knowing like, okay, this will help me figure out which direction I need to go, and how much help I actually need, and what could be my first step. So
Thank you for sharing that. Is there like a formula or thumb rule that you use to kind of get that going, to get that initial I know budgeting, obviously, right? Budgeting is one of them, saving and things like that. But is there like a formula or a workflow that you use to kind of simplify that for you and kind of visualize and make it easier to kind of do that every month?
there are a few different things I do. But when I first started, the first thing I did was, like I said earlier, I'm a paper and pen girl. Is really I sat down, and I just looked at the calendar and I wrote down. So you look at a monthly calendar. So let's say if you're, either you could do August because we just started August, or you could do September, however you want to do it, or just a 31-day sheet. And I actually just did this with my husband the other day. And you write down all of your bills, right? So you write down what date they're due, and you write down how much you have to pay. So that's the first thing. So if your rent is due the first, you write down your rent. You put on the first how much you would have to pay for it. If your credit card is due the 5th, right, you would put down your credit card, how much it's, and you continue with all your bills until all of your bills are visibly on the sheet. And then once you do that, then you put down your paydays, right? So you put down your paydays and how much you actually get paid for each payday and how many paydays you have in a month. Some people have 2, 4, however, it depends on the job. And then you want to look at, okay, are your paydays actually enough for the expenses you have monthly? I tell some people miss this because your bills are not the only expenses you have. You also have your lifestyle items like groceries, right? If you go out to do your hair or your lashes or your nails, right? If you go out with friends for happy hour, these are all expenses that are not on the calendar, right? So you have to make sure that when you're looking at your paychecks, that your expenses are less than that, because you also have other things that you have to pay for that are not just your bills. So that's the first thing I have my clients look at. Once they do that, and if they are negative, let's say their paycheck is not enough, now we're going in and we're reevaluating like the things that you are actually important, the things that you actually need, right? So that we can't change that, we can't remove that. So there's 2 options you could do. You could either cut certain things, which a lot of people don't like to do, or you have to make more money. And so those are your 2 options. You have to make more money or you have to cut certain things. And so obviously both things are not fun. But in order for you to live the life that you want, you have to make some sacrifices for a certain season. So I tell my clients, it's just for a season, right? Until we get you back on track to where you want to be, where you feel comfortable with your money, with your spending habits, with where your life is going. Once that season is over, you will not have this problem of having to look at your money on a daily basis. So we start off with that. And then once we do that, you now have a blueprint of like, okay, this is where my money is going. This is how much I'm making. Now we set up a schedule for your paychecks to cover your bills, right? So if you get paid twice a month, let's say you get paid on the 1st, that first paycheck needs to cover from the 1st to your next paycheck. Let's say your next paycheck is on the 15th. So that first paycheck will have to cover everything between the 1st and the 14th. You won't count the 15th because that's when your next paycheck is. And then your second paycheck, that has to cover from the 15th all the way to the end of the month. right? Because you get paid again on the first. So that's just an example. Obviously, everybody has different days and different numbers and things like that. But just to make it easier for everybody, that's the second step, is really making sure that each paycheck is covering it's a time period. It's not basically, oh, for the month. I don't like to do it that way because everyone's life is so different. And just looking at things like a month ahead is kind of hard, right? So I just like to break it up into steps so that way you have step one, step two, and you kind of could just zoom in on those two steps and be more specific, or allocate money where you need to, or move things around if you need to. One of the things I've done with my clients is move credit card dates, right? Because it didn't work in their budget. Like they go over at one point. So we would move it. You just call the credit card company and move it where it's convenient for you. And instead of, same thing with rent, we split it into two, right? Maybe one paycheck won't be able to cover your rent, but maybe if we split the rent into two and have it ahead of time, that also helps. So there's always tips and tricks that you can do, but those would be the steps that I would say just to start with, is write down your bills on a monthly calendar, write down your paychecks, and then start with that, looking at what paycheck is going to cover what bills and going from there.
Thank you. Do you recommend, like, I know this is like budgeting and kind of covering um your bills and lifestyle, right? Like groceries, things, essentials, if you will. I'm assuming that in that formula you will probably pitch in or have like savings or like long-term savings or things like that, because I feel like a lot of us, especially in our culture, live paycheck to paycheck, and it's just like covering the essentials. Like some people don't even have, a savings fund, or if they have an emergency to, get some money from. And what will you recommend, like at least just briefly, like a percentage that of your paycheck or something? I've heard like percentages, people give percentages to like save a certain amount of their income, to just kind of build up that savings.
Yeah, no, definitely that is something that we get to. But people want to know, really, when it comes to emergency funds or savings, you have to get into the habit of actually doing, right? Just like you said, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you probably are not in the habit of saving any of your money into either a savings account or an emergency fund or anything like that. And so the way we start with that, building that habit, is starting very small. One, if you're living paycheck to paycheck and you don't have anything extra, what we do is you lower an expense, right? So let's say we are lowering groceries to a lower amount or whatever it is, you get to choose. You don't do it drastically. You don't want to do anything, you're like, oh, I'm just going to cut my groceries by $100 and that's what I'm going to save a month. You don't want to do anything drastic like that. You want to start small. So you could start off by saving $5 from that and saving that, and seeing if you can keep that up it could be for 4 weeks, it could be for 3 months, saving that. And I know like people want to rush it, like, oh, I want to save $1,000 in 3 months. And it doesn't need to be that way. You want to build the habit first, because if you don't have the habit, eventually what's going to happen is you're going to break that routine, and you're going to either splurge, or you're going to overspend, or you're going to use that money you just saved for something else you didn't account for, right? So you want to build the habit first. So I always tell my clients, so it's not something so significant, but starting small, whether it's $20 every 2 weeks or every week, or however if it's in their lifestyle, starting with that and then slowly building from there. So if you have proven to yourself that you can do it for a month, or let's say weekly, then you're like, all right, well, let's move it up, right? Let's add an additional $10 and we're going from there. And most of the time also, once we go in and I look at people's numbers, we do tend to find money that they're like, oh my God, I had no idea I had this money left over every month. And usually that happens to be their save. And that's when we start building their savings from that money. That's usually what ends up happening. But for some people that are just negative or don't have the capacity, what we do is just like taking a small increment from, like, whether it's $1 from each thing that you spend. So like taking $1 from your nail budget, taking $1 from your groceries, taking $1 from, I don't know, your clothes budget, and putting that together and accumulating $10 to just set aside and save, and building that habit.
That's beautiful. Thank you for simplifying that, because I feel like savings is such like a taboo, like, oh, like I can't save, like I'm trying to survive, or like, I don't have the means, I, have negative right now, but it's like shifting of that mindset. Even if you like save $1, like you said, from each expense, it builds up over time, and creating that habit, I feel like that's crucial, um, because Rome wasn't made in one day. So it's like, increments of like the habit and keeping it up, and yeah, progress is perfect. So that's perfect. That's great. Thank you. Could you share with us? I feel like adversity is like for a gem, right? So let's say pressure, adversity is like what makes you like who you are, and like strong and invincible and beautiful. So can you share with us a pivotal moment that made you the gem you are today, and how you overcame it?
Oh my gosh. I've had so many pivotal moments. I'm just like, oh, where do I
Like
start?
which one? I mean, life, right? But like, something that you really like, maybe recent, something that really like struck you and kind of changed in some way.
I think for me, the pivotal moment in my life, I think that one of the things that just stood out when you mentioned that was deciding that I couldn't be anybody else's savior without saving myself first. Because I grew up obviously as a first gen. I'm the oldest for my mother and things like that. And I just always had this, I was always the person who was taking initiative and just making decisions for my parents, and making sure that my parents had this, and they would come to me for things, and I would always consistently be the savior for them, and I was always putting myself last. And so at one point when I realized that my mindset was not going to change, my life was not going to change unless I saved myself first. And I had to fight and go through the guilt that came up from like leaving, or feeling like I was leaving my parents and leaving them behind. But really, I was putting myself first. And so my life didn't change until I realized that. And I chose to actually move out of my parents' home. And I had to battle with those feelings of like, oh my God, like I'm leaving them. And really the guilt, the guilt that comes up with
Yes.
first John is just like, no, but they gave me all these things and I have to help them with everything. But really, I could not help them without helping myself first, right? At the point where I was leaving my house, I was still struggling with, like I said, I had a lot of debt. I was still struggling with making ends meet. And so I was helping, or trying to help my parents from an empty cup. Like I was giving them the money and the shirts from my back when I didn't even have money to get to work, or I didn't have money to buy lunch for the day. And I was suffering myself because I was feeling guilty because I couldn't give them more. And so my life really changed when I decided, like, I need to put myself first and save myself first before I can save anybody else.
Wow. That's so powerful. Like you're having me like in tears right now, because I could so relate. Like, and it's the guilt, right? Like you said it. It's the guilt. Like I'm a first gen too. I'm the oldest from my mom. Was the youngest from my dad, but he decided to have another baby. So so it's just those expectations and those traumas and those pressures and norms, and you have to do this, and constant like reaching out, and can you do this for me, and this and that, and why are you doing this, and what are you doing today, and where are you going, and it's like constant controlling and constant guilt. It's just overwhelming. And I'm so proud of you that you did that step, because I feel like many times recently I'm like, I just want to go somewhere where nobody knows where I am. Nobody's like constantly like seeking energy and validation and something from me. Like I need to pour into myself. I need to be with myself. And it's so hard because you feel like you owe them something. They need you, like, oh, you forgot you have a dad, like you don't call me.
Oh my God, the guilt trip is so real.
It's like
They love
my
using
dad
it.
is an expert on that. So it's hard because, I love them obviously, but it's just like you can't love and be there for them if you're not there for yourself. And I feel like I kind of turned it around recently, and I was like, I grew up with my mom, and she was a single mother, and she grew up also from mom that wasn't very loving and nurturing and communicative and all that stuff. And she was not that mom that would nurture you and love you and hug you and stuff. And I was like, wait, like, up to like adulthood, and doing the work and healing, I was like, she couldn't give me what she didn't have. And that's the same thing. Like I have to do that for myself. Like I can't give what other, like what I don't have for myself to friends, to family, to my partner. And it's just like loving and being there first and putting yourself first. That's something that I struggle with, because you want to like save the world. You want to be the savior for everybody. You want to be there for them, and and make everybody happy, and everybody's on good terms. And yeah, but how about you? So thank you so for sharing that. I feel like that's very great way to put like the gem in you, right? Like that transformed you because it makes you a better person for yourself, right? It makes you a better person for others, and you show up differently because you made that decision. And it's something that we learn every day and we struggle with. So it's we have to choose it every day. It's like, okay, yeah, no, not today.
Yeah, every single day, just nonstop. It does not stop. Still to this day, I'm out of my parents' house and they're still calling me for certain things. And you have to set boundaries and you have to set
Yeah,
expectations that
great. Yeah.
that they, they don't fully understand, but and they also see how much I've grown and they see how much, now they see me as an adult woman versus just, their daughter, right? That, they understand that now I'm going to have a family of my own and I'm going to have my own priorities. And, at first they didn't understand it. At first it was hard for both of us because
Yeah.
you also as their child obviously pick up these things and the guilt comes from, you wanting to please them, being a people pleaser and wanting all these things to just turn out good, right? You want things to be perfect and but you really can't do it all. You really can't be everything.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So apart from, I know you gave us like tips and tricks of how to start our financial journey, which trust me, I will be implementing today. But like from in terms of like a more complex financial mindset, um, what would be like a toolkit that you can like briefly put together in a couple sentences of like, okay, this is like the magic toolkit that will like keep you or change you into like a financial freedom, if you will. Do you feel
Mhm.
like you've been like you're on the path to financial freedom? Like that's the goal. That's the goal. But like, giving us tips and tricks of like, okay, you must have this, that, and like to be able to be aligned and get there.
Well, financial freedom looks different for everybody. I know that there's so many things out there like the fire community and people retiring early and things like that, but financial freedom doesn't need to be that if that's not something that you can or want to live, right? For me, financial freedom is being able to wake up and do what I want when I want, right? So obviously I still have a job, but I still get to buy what I want when I want. If I want to order lunch and I don't want to cook, I can do that because that's financial freedom for me. If I want to buy gifts, I want to buy gifts for my nieces and nephews and my parents, like, and not have to second guess whether I'm going to have money tomorrow or not to feed myself.
Mm,
That's financial freedom. So financial freedom is not just a number that you reach or is not just an amount that you have. Financial freedom is really just having the choice and the freedom from guilt or the freedom from pressure or the freedom from anxiety. That's financial freedom. And honestly, the
amen.
biggest thing, yeah, like really the biggest thing I tell my clients, it's like, you don't strive for a number, strive for something that feels comfortable for you. If for you, being able to buy lunch on a daily basis without worrying about going in debt or going overdrafting in your bank account is financial freedom, then that's enough for you, right? Or if maybe for you, financial freedom is being able to pay your car off every month without having to worry about the rest of the bills in the house, that's financial freedom for you, right? So everybody has a different number or a different view what financial freedom is, and you really have to figure that on your own. Like, when will you feel like you have financial freedom? And you have to really ask yourself that question, like, what is it that you want? um and really the blueprint that I give people is that, like the tip I gave earlier, is really looking at your numbers and seeing everything. And then if it's debt, if it's really like feeling like, oh my God, you're drowning in debt, is really tackling that debt, tackling it, not to the point where you're paying everything off and you're like, I'm free. Because obviously that's the goal, but really just taking one debt at a time. And starting with writing, what I like to do is I do a snowball method, which is really just writing your debts from smallest debt to largest debt and tackling them one at a time. So that means paying the minimum on all of them. And then the first one that you have on that list, that smallest one, adding extra to it when you can, and then getting it out. So once you pay that off, you use that money you were using to pay that small debt and moving on to the next debt. And you just kind of keep adding those numbers and using that money over and over again. You're recycling the money and using it over and over again to pay off your debt. So that's a method you do it. So there's so many different things you could do. But really financial freedom, you have to decide if it's paying off debt, if it's just having enough for gas and lunch, if it's having enough to make it for the end of the month without going negative or overdrafting your bank account. That comes from you and what goals you want to set.
Thank you. That was amazing. I think that was very helpful, and gives us like a optimal and very clear, but also like reachable, right? Doable. So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to have you here. Like I said, like I really like your vibe, the way that you explain things. And being Dominican, I feel like we always like relate and connect that way. So thank you so much. I hope that from here we can, collaborate and create things. And you're always welcome here in Gem and Me, the podcast, and other projects that I have. I wanted to have you share your handles or like where people can connect with you and find you.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much. This was such a great conversation. I'm always very open to talking all about money and mindset because it's my jam. It's what I feel really comfortable with. And I just feel like as a community of women, the first gen and things like that, it's needed. It's not really talked about in our spaces. So definitely looking forward to working with you more in the future. And everybody can find me. I spend most of my time on Instagram at Valery Lucille. So Valery. I know people spell Valerie very differently. And Lucille, Lucille. You can find me on Instagram, and I have a lot of so if you're looking for money things, if you go to my posts, I have a lot of money posts, not in the most recent, but if you scroll down, you'll find a lot of money posts on there. And I also have a lot of like mindset mini trainings and things like that, that I like to give my audience. So I do provide as much as I possibly can, but I also offer one-on-one coaching for women. So right now, my one-on-one coaching is 8 weeks long. And we really dive into like really just getting you to trust yourself again, whether that's, again, like I said, your money financially, like getting that in gear, or whether that's rediscovering your voice, whether that's stepping away from your parents and becoming your own person, and saving yourself. But really the whole thing is just living confidently in your skin so that you're not stuck all the time or feeling like you're stuck and lonely.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Valerie. It's a pleasure to have you. And I think like this is amazing. Like, it really is going to impact our community and change that mindset. So I'm happy to have you here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I am so grateful that you're here listening to my podcast, Gem and Me. I hope that you continue to share, continue to listen on very important topics that I discuss in my growth and journey to what is called life. I hope that you're able to learn and explore different values and things that you have within you. I really hope to serve as a support system and a community to those who need that inspiration in that community, because I know that I needed this, I still do, but like growing up, I feel like I needed something where I can, see the examples and have a support system. So I hope to serve as such. Thank you for listening and have a great one.